be on more in the future, because this is really awesome. I've attended a couple webinars myself prior to being on the board when I was a living donor. So this work is so awesome, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Wonderful. Well, it looks like Amanda has kicked us live to Facebook Live, as well as we're recording. So with that, we will turn this over to you to kick off the presentation.
Sounds great. Well, I would like to welcome everybody to joining this call this evening. I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to be hosting this on behalf of the National Kidney Foundation, as well as the National Kidney Foundation Board. So you can see kind of a couple logistics prior to getting started here. During the meeting, you can see the participants over on the right-hand side if you click there. There's a couple navigation points on the bottom that can help you stay muted throughout this presentation. So we are asking that you please mute yourself unless you're speaking. We can also ask you to use the chat box if you have any questions. You can ask of the moderator, or you can also comment in the chat box as well. And we always love to hear any experiences or any ad libs that you guys have that we can kind of share with the group. Please also use the microphone icon as well. You can see there that's just pointing to where you can find that button to mute yourself and unmute yourself. And then right there, you can see the arrow pointing to the box to ask questions. So please feel free to utilize the chat box too. And then again, you can use the video icon to stop your live stream image being shown on the video screen. So that's the video portion of this. So if you don't want to be shown on the video, you can click that little camera down in the left-hand corner as well to take off your video. So with that, again, good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be here this evening. This is my first host of the Living Donors Together webinar. And I couldn't be more excited. My name is Elise Bailey. I'm a safety specialist nurse at Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. I am also a board member on the National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin, and I am also a fellow living kidney donor. Back in 2017, I had the privilege of donating my kidney altruistically to a 5-year-old young lady. You can see there in the pictures. Her name is Elizabeth. We actually ended up meeting pretty shortly after our surgery, and we have been in very close contact, have had a very close relationship ever since. In fact, she was a flower girl at my wedding. So we have this beautiful story, this beautiful connection, and I couldn't be more of an advocate of living donation. So I thank you all for joining this webinar. It truly is a privilege. And I can't wait to hear these stories that we're about to hear regarding living kidney donation and everybody's kind of path that they go on, because everybody's is a little bit different, but each story in and of itself is so beautiful, and how each individual gets to the path of donation, specifically non-family member or altruistic donation. I'm just really excited and privileged to be here and proud to be on this webinar with all of you. So with that, we're going to kind of go through a couple National Kidney Foundation social opportunities, donation opportunities. So first, for all of you Amazon shoppers, and I am one of them, Christmas is coming up. And so a really, really easy way to get some money to donate to the National Kidney Foundation is by going and making Amazon your donation charity of choice via Amazon Smile. So instead of Amazon.com, you just go to smile.amazon.com and select National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin as your charity of choice. Also, if you have a used car that you would like to donate, that you're trying to figure out what to do with, you just don't have much use for it anymore, and you would like to take the route of donation, please consider Kidney Cars, the Kidney Cars organization, where you can donate your cars to any recipients or donors, or it's a great organization that facilitates that. And you can get in touch with them via that phone number on the screen, and also kidneycars.org, and you can find out some more information on that as well. As far as social networking, we know we're all on all of these social networking sites these days because sometimes it's the only social interaction we get in quarantine. So if you want to find us on any social network, we are on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, as well as YouTube, NKF, NKFWI, or National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin. You can also be reached via email, telephone, or we have an awesome website as well. So feel free to visit those or have some communication there. With that, I am going to hand it off to our facilitators, Michelle and Jill, who are also living kidney donors. I am honored to pass the baton to you guys to get our meeting going.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. And we were thrilled to host this final Real People, Real Stories segment this evening. And Jill and I always have a blast with these events, whether they're virtual or in person. It's always so great to connect and to see living donors, caregivers, recipients, etc., and who comes together for these webinars. And what we love about them is that they're recorded. And so these are shared, these are able for us to share, to tell the really great stories of organ donation, and hopefully educate and engage and inspire others to learn more, and maybe hopefully donate, whether that be an organ or resources to support the great efforts of the National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jill just to share a little bit more about what Living Donors Together of Wisconsin is, and quickly share her story before we continue on.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, my headset is a little goofy. Just got back from taking my dog to the eye doctor, which if you guys know me is funny because that's what I do for a living. But anyway, I apologize for the late onboarding here, but thank you all for coming. Amy, love seeing your baby. And we, as Michelle probably mentioned, you know, we started Living Donors Together, trying to have a platform for all of us as living donors in Wisconsin to try to get together, and it's really been a great time. Many of you already know me. I'm actually been a living donor for 9.5 years. I donated to Sara, who's there on the picture. She was a friend of a friend, now become like a sister to me. And she and I together started Central Wisconsin Gift of Life, which we have a legacy garden in Wisconsin Rapids. If anybody is interested at any point in checking out our legacy garden or being a part of our legacy garden, you can check out our Facebook page at Central Wisconsin Gift of Life. It's the only one of its kind in Wisconsin, and so we're pretty proud of it. But anyway, I won't spend much time on my own story because we are anxious to hear everybody else's stories tonight. And I think we are actually going to talk with Sara first, right, to do an advocacy update for us. Sara Hicklin is our advocacy guru, and so she will share some information with you guys. So go ahead, Sara.
Thank you, Jill. Good evening, everybody. As Jill said, I'm Sara Hicklin, and I provide the advocacy updates to this group about proposed legislation related to kidney disease and organ donation. I've been a volunteer with the National Kidney Foundation Kidney Advocacy Committee, that's a mouthful, since September of 2018. I became an advocate for several reasons. My family has a genetic kidney disease, and both myself and two of my siblings have been fortunate enough to receive kidney donations before we needed dialysis. So we're in a very small, very fortunate group that got preemptive kidney transplants. My sister received both of her kidneys. Yes, she got two from a deceased donor. It's unusual for both kidneys to go to one recipient, but the donor was older and one of the kidneys was very small, so it would not have been viable on its own. And they figured the best bang for the buck was to give both of those kidneys to my sister. So she had one native kidney removed to make room for that. And then my brother and I both had living kidney donations, or living donors, I should say. And we both had both of our native kidneys removed. And for those of you that aren't familiar, it's not the norm to have your native kidneys removed. Our family has polycystic kidney disease. Our kidneys become very large, like football shaped, and even larger. And for various reasons, they will remove those kidneys when you receive the transplanted kidney. So both my brother and I, who had the living donors, ended up doing paired exchanges. And all three of us are doing very, very well. And we're extremely grateful for this second chance at life. My sister was the first to receive her transplant. She subsequently started volunteering for the organ procurement organization attached to our center and is now a paid employee there. I also volunteer for the OPO and then later joined the Kidney Advocacy Committee for National Kidney Foundation. I'm passionate about making it easier for living kidney donors to actually get to the end of the process, because several of the folks that offered to be tested for me, their employers couldn't accommodate their temporary leaves and or restrictions after returning to work. So they had to drop out of the process simply because of employment, not because of health. And I want to make it easier. I want to get something similar to FMLA passed for all living kidney donors. And that's why I'm so passionate about this work that I do. So if you want to go to the, thank you. What I want to do is spend time tonight talking about what happened during the 2020 election. I know we're all tired of hearing about it, but please bear with me for just a few minutes. I'm going to touch base at a pretty high level. So honestly, there were not very many major changes in our Wisconsin legislators. Neither of our senators was up for re-election. Control of the Senate will be determined in January when Georgia has their runoff elections for both of their Senate seats. If both go to Democrats, then there will be a 50-50 split in the Senate and any ties will be broken by the Vice President Kamala Harris. If either Georgia seat goes to a Republican, they will retain control of the Senate, but with the extremely thin margin of possibly 50-50 or 51-49. The House does remain in Democratic control, but with a narrower margin than in the current year and previous years. Of our 8 Wisconsin congressional districts, there really weren't any changes. We did have a new person elected, but he is a Republican and took the place of a Republican. So in terms of the split between Democrats and Republicans, there is no change. District 5 is the only thing where Jim Sensenbrenner retired, and then Scott Fitzgerald was elected, and he is the current state Senate majority leader. At the state level, obviously, we're still going to have a Democratic governor and then Republican control of both the assembly and the state. So with the environment the way it's been over the past year or two, it's doubtful that any new legislation, such as a state version of the Living Donor Protection Act, will be introduced in 2021 or even 2022. If you want to go to the next slide. So we do currently have some bills in front of the existing Congress, and they're still getting a few co-signers, but in all honesty, nothing's going to happen with these bills. The current Congress will end, and then a new Congress begins in January. So any bills that are still sitting in committee, they use the word die. So they will die in committee, and then they will need to be reintroduced in the new Congress. So how does that normally work? The current co-sponsors or people who introduce those bills can reintroduce them, or if they are unable or unwilling, we can find new champions in either the House or the Senate to introduce those bills. There's also some discussion among the Kidney Advocacy Committee members about what will happen to the executive order that was signed by President Trump in 2019 related to kidney care. And that order will stay in effect unless President Biden does something specific to reverse it, or there's another word for what they can do. My slide says that there were several orders. It was really one order with 3 different goals. And those were, let me look at my notes here. Reducing the number of patients who develop kidney failure, increasing the use of home dialysis instead of in-center dialysis, that's huge right now with COVID, and increasing the number of kidneys available for transplant. So the National Kidney Foundation is already working with President-elect Biden and continues to work with the Trump administration to further our goals and make sure that whatever the new administration does, it will benefit the National Kidney Foundation. And then the final slide. I just want to talk a little bit about what you can do. Not everybody is a political junkie like I am, and not everybody wants to do a lot of public speaking about kidneys or anything, but you can share your story in any number of ways. I love what I do in terms of working with the politicians, but I know that's not a comfortable area for a lot of people. So I would love to know what this group does to advocate for kidneys, and what ideas you have that maybe are different from what I do, and how I can support you in those efforts. So if anybody has any comments or questions, I'd love to hear those. Otherwise, I'm done and we can get going with the great stories that we're going to hear tonight.
Excellent. Does anyone have any specific questions for Sara? And if you could, if you're so inclined to share more about how you advocate or tell your story in the chat, that would be wonderful. We get a little interactive this evening. And if you're tuning in on Facebook Live, feel free to type that into the chat window there. Excellent. With no questions, we will begin the presentations this evening. Thank you so much, Sara, for sharing that information and always keeping us in tune to what's happening. The education is important for us in this group, as well as, again, having that intel to be able to act when we feel ready. Because you're right, not all of us are as comfortable in this space as you are. So we do appreciate the intel and the partnership. And I am honored this evening to introduce 4 wonderful living donors, individuals that I have met on my living donor journey, and some I have most recently met as this summer, and others I have known now for a couple, if not a few years. And so what I love about being a living donor is I have the opportunity to make these connections with fellow living donors. And again, the whole premise behind this Living Donors Together of Wisconsin group is that it gave us a space to connect and to ask questions and to advocate and to share our stories and to create continued awareness about the need for organ donation, and in many of our cases, particularly living organ donation. And so the speakers that are joining us this evening, like I said, I've met in a variety of different ways, but all 4 of these folks stepped up for me this summer as I was finishing my graduate degree and receiving my Master's of Leadership. And my capstone project, of course, was focused on organ donation, naturally. And all 4 of the presenters this evening stepped up to help by sharing more of their story, conducting an interview with me, and giving me an opportunity to understand their motivations for donating, and also ask a series of questions about considerations of donation. If they were donating today in these COVID times, what would be their concerns or questions that they would ask their transplant centers and their network? And so again, as Living Donors Together is here to inspire, it's also here to help educate and educate through our stories. And so I wanted to thank all of them for being here this evening to share, and really that pursuit of mine to obtain an advanced degree came because of my experience through living organ donation. I was thankful to donate to my best friend's dad in August of 2014. And it was a moment for me that provided some clarity on what my future career and my future just profession and volunteerism, where that was guiding me. And so I always thank Dick for those late night study hours and all that extra time. Because of our connection through kidney donation, I finally had the courage to step up and pursue that advanced degree. And Mr. Hanusa, Dick, is doing really well. So we're over 6 years out from our donation, and He too is a non-relative to me, so I have a sweet spot for our presenters this evening who made that choice to donate to a non-relative and make those types of considerations as part of their living donor decision. So with that, really quickly, I'm just going to share a little bit about our 4 presenters, and then we're going to jump right in to hear from them. So Maranda has been married for almost 10 years. Her and her husband have 2 rescue pit bulls who they love and are the loves of their life, as well as a little bit of travel. Sounds like she's got some great places she's visited. She is passionate about running and working out and just completed her 4th half marathon in October. So we have lots to live up to, Maranda, as we always follow you on social media and get to see all the places you run and see. Education and giving back to the community are very important to her. She also has a master's degree. Hers is in professional counseling with an emphasis in student affairs and college counseling. And she serves on the board of directors for the Fond du Lac chapter of Girls on the Run, and also as an associate member as a living kidney donor for Donate Life Wisconsin. Susan is a living kidney donor since November. So, oh gosh, yesterday was your anniversary. Happy anniversary, November 16th of 2011. She is an attorney in Pewaukee, and her hobbies include competitive triathlons, long distance bike rides, and yoga. So you and Maranda have a lot in common. Noah is coming to us all the way from Oklahoma. So if you saw that in the chat. And what we love about Living Donors Together of Wisconsin is in most cases, people have a connection to Wisconsin through their donation, but that doesn't mean that they live here. And so Noah usually gets the prize for, the longest traveled when he joins us for these events. So we're thrilled that you're here and so glad to hear that you and your recipient are doing well and progressing in your everyday lives. We look forward to hearing your story, Noah. And then Amy is bouncing. I have to look over here in the video chat, still bouncing the baby. There, wonderful. So Amy is a wife and a mother to 3 boys. She donated in May of 2018 to someone that she met on social media. This is such a fun story. Through her mutually favorite band. Amy flew halfway across the country to donate in Philadelphia and gained a lifelong friend in her recipient. And when asking Amy to present this evening, not only were we excited, we really wanted to see the baby too, but I was like, so can the band perform? Like, let's bring the band back together again tonight. So to all 4 of you, we thank you so much for being here this evening. And we are going to turn the mic over to Maranda, and she's going to kick off the presentation this evening.
Hi, everybody. I am very excited to be here tonight. So I am from the Appleton area originally. My husband and I live in Fond du Lac. I work at Marian University as the assistant registrar, and then also advise our ROTC program and student veteran organization. Those are huge passions of mine. So that's kind of actually where my story started. I had 2 acquaintances from work who had done direct kidney donations to people that they knew within a year or 2 before I did mine. So I knew a little bit about it. And then at work in spring of 2018, there was an academic symposium, and one of the presentations was a Share Your Spare panel. So I was really excited to sit down and listen to the recipients. I believe there were 4 recipients and 4 donors. Some were connected, some were not. And just really hear their stories and how donation impacted their life and how they're doing today. So sitting through that hour presentation just really, I felt lit something inside me. And I said, this is something that I feel like I need to do and want to pursue more. I didn't know anybody at the time who needed a kidney, but I just thought, well, I'll reach out to UW Health in Madison and get the ball rolling and see where it takes me. So I reached out to them that summer, started all my fun testing and evals and all that fun stuff down there in that August. I was kind of given an okay, but I had to do a few additional tests and things to do in the next couple months. So in October of 2019, 2019, I was given the approval, and then I was put on the National Kidney Registry to match with somebody. Within 24 hours, I got my match. I was so excited. I'll never forget when I got the call and they said, you were matched. We can't tell you much, but they are 40 to 50 years old and they are in Massachusetts. There's somebody very hard to match with. And do you accept your match? And I just started crying. I'll never forget that. I was so excited. So of course I said yes. And I kind of got together with my boss and figured out when I could do this. And I had some other things going on at the time. So November 21st of 2019 was our big day. So this Saturday will be our year. I can't believe it's been almost a year already. Had the surgery down at UW Health in Madison. Amazing, amazing team down there. My mom and my husband were huge helpers along the way through everything. And so, like I said, at the time, I didn't know who I was donating to. I just knew my kidney was flying to Boston and I hope it was going to do okay. I named it Betty. So Betty the Bean was going to Boston. I was able to write my recipient a letter, which I did find out in the hospital that they did receive. And I knew that their surgery went well and they were producing urine and all that you want to hear right away. So after I knew going into this, there was a chance I was possibly never going to get to know who my recipient was. And I had to be okay with that, even though secretly, of course, I wanted to know. So a few months down the line, I reached out to my team just to ask about my recipient because I hadn't heard anything. And they reached out to his team in Boston and told me he was doing wonderful. He was doing really good. His numbers and labs were all wonderful. This actually was his second kidney he's received, and he also had a heart transplant. So this was actually his third transplant that he had. So because I inquired, that prompted him to want to know more about me. So there was kind of some crazy things behind the scenes with and without our teams, but he actually ended up finding me on social media, which was kind of amazing. So his name is Travis and he's 41 years old and he is out in the Boston area and he is doing amazing. We talk regularly via Facebook Messenger every so often just to update each other about what's going on in our lives. He actually was able just to get married this summer, which I was so excited. He and his fiance had tried to get married twice before this, but he was just really, really, really sick from all of his kidney stuff. So he was able to get married this summer and he has 3 new stepchildren and he's really, really excited about part of I knew he was a very hard person to match with. My team did tell me that, but he also, in sharing his journey and his story with me, if you had put 100 people in front of him, he had an 8% chance of matching with one. So I was his one little tiny 8% chance of matching with. So that's, I know we just share a very, very special connection that way. So yeah, it's just been amazing to learn more about him and his story. And my husband and I were actually going to travel out there this past weekend and we were going to meet for the first time and meet his family and get connected right around our 1-year anniversary. But with COVID kind of exploding all over the place right now, we did put a kibosh to that just because we want to keep everybody as safe as possible. So hopefully spring, we'll get to meet. But yeah, this was the most amazing thing from going to just having the thought in my mind, well, maybe I can do this. And then doing the altruistic non-direct. And I just knew my kidney was going to Boston and hopefully it was going to make it and make somebody healthy. And then knowing it did, and we got to connect and he's doing amazing. And yeah, and then being a part of the Donate Life Wisconsin board and being an advocate that way and trying to share my story and share just pieces of any knowledge, any information people want to know. I try to be such an advocate now and yeah, just be there for anybody who has questions. I just started to mentor actually somebody who's, I forget where she is, Oregon maybe. who's thinking about becoming a living kidney donor. So she shoots questions to me all the time, and I try to answer as honestly and open as I can, and just trying to help her along the way. And yeah, I'm just, if I had more kidneys, I wish I could do it again. It was an amazing journey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story. We're actually going to hold the Q&A till the very end after all 4 living donors have had the chance to share their story. But if you don't want to forget your question, please definitely type it into the chat, and you can unmute yourself at the end to ask your question as well. So with that, thank you again, Miranda, for sharing your story. And we are going to turn it over to Susan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Susan Griskowiak, and my organ donation story started back quite a few years ago in 2007. I had worked with a woman whose sister had received a kidney transplant when she was much younger. At 18, she had her first transplant. Unfortunately, that failed, so she was on dialysis quite a while waiting for another kidney. Was fortunate enough to get a kidney that lasted for almost 30 years for her. She took really good care of herself in the kidney because she wanted to make sure that it lasted for her. And you can see a picture of Dot and I in the corner of the screen there. And about 2007, she had gotten bad news from her doctor that the kidney was finally starting to fail and she would probably need another transplant. Unfortunately, her husband, her son, her sister, all of her friends and family weren't a match for her. So that's when my wheels started turning and I thought, well, what's involved with this? So I started doing some homework on what does it mean if you're a kidney donor? How does it affect you after donation? All those kinds of things. And really after talking to doctors and doing some research on it, I found out really your life doesn't change at all after donating a kidney. So to me, it was a no-brainer to step up and say, hey, I want to do this for Dot. We were the same blood type and she had had a doctor at Freighter for the 30 plus years that she had had kidney disease. And we started the process with Freighter. After going through all the tests, it was determined that I was a match for her. So we were just kind of waiting for that point when she actually needed to have the transplant. Unfortunately, she had some other health complications come up. She got some blood transfusions, and then we were no longer a good match. There were too many antibodies and problems with that. So they told her, really, it's going to be difficult to find any kidney for you. So again, we started researching and we're back to the drawing board and we looked into a paired exchange program, hoping that maybe we could get her a kidney that way. She made the difficult decision to leave Freighter after all those years because they weren't participating in a paired exchange at that time. So she moved over and got situated at UW Health, and she was cleared for donation or for receiving a kidney rather through UW and was put on the wait list there while I started going through the process again of being tested. And then it was a few weeks after she'd been put on the list and got a call that there was a cadaver kidney coming her way from the East Coast somewhere. So she had her surgery, it was successful. We waited some time just to make sure that everything was okay with Dot. And then knowing what she had been through and how difficult it was to be healthy enough to find, be healthy enough to be a donor, to find someone who was a match, who was willing to donate, all those things just made me think, well, she doesn't need my kidney anymore, but somebody out there does. And as long as I've been cleared and I know I'm healthy enough, I'm going to do it anyway. So I started talking to UW about being an altruistic donor, and they were able to, through one of the national paired exchange programs, find someone in California that needed my kidney. His wife was going to donate her kidney then, and it started a chain. So my kidney actually went to someone in California, his wife donated for him, and eventually the chain came back to Wisconsin, and somebody off of our waiting list here in Wisconsin got a kidney. So that completed the chain for us. So it was really great because my one kidney was able to trigger a whole bunch of people getting kidneys. And like Maranda, we named my kidney. My friends actually, we had a going away party for the kidney the night before my surgery. And one of the games we played was Name That Kidney. And we named it Renee because we didn't know if it was going to a man or a woman. And because Renee Reno, we thought that would be a good name for the kidney. So Renee got on a plane and went to California. That was November 16th, 2011. I don't even think about it anymore, so I didn't even realize yesterday was my anniversary. But since then, I haven't ever talked to my recipient, and that's okay. It's kind of like Maranda had talked about, being an altruistic donor. You don't necessarily know what the relationship will be or what the situation will be. I just hope and pray every day that Renee is still serving my recipient well, and that everybody else in the chain is doing well with their kidneys. And a few years later, in 2013, I had connected with a group called Destination Donation here in Wisconsin. It was a group that was trying to encourage organ donation, particularly among athletes. With athletes being healthy and taking care of their bodies, they thought they would be a good group to target for organ donation. So they had approached me. I had done triathlons just kind of for fun, not too competitively, but they had approached me about doing a half Ironman to raise awareness for both their group and organ donation. And for some reason, I agreed to do that. So in July of 2013, I did a half Ironman for Destination Donation, and that's the picture in the middle. I had a huge group of family and friends come and support the event, and it was just kind of a way of showing people, even with one kidney, you can do anything. I didn't attempt a full Ironman, and I probably never will. Half was plenty, but it was just good to show people and let them know that there's really nothing that you can't do after you donate a kidney. And for my part, anytime I have a chance to talk to anybody about organ donation, I actually have my license plate as a Donate Life plate that says "Be a Donor." So I get a lot of people stopping me in parking lots and talking to me about that, and I just try to tell my story and encourage others to go forward with living donation if it's something that they're thinking about.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I know I have a question for you when we get to that section of the program this evening. So again, if you have questions for Susan or Miranda, put them in the chat or save them for later. And we are going to now turn the mic over to Noah.
Am I audible? Can we hear me?
We can hear you now.
Fantastic. Okay, so my name is Noah Torres. I actually live in Prague, Oklahoma. So I am far from Wisconsin. And it's always really fun that Michelle reaches out and gets to ask me to participate in these. And her Keystone project was real fun for me. So I actually started the donation process in 2017 after I was scrolling through my news feed on the Facebook at work, because we were slow and you never really know what to expect anyways. And so a friend of mine who actually lives in Wisconsin shared the billboard. Actually, there you see it on the left side of the screen. She shared that post from a pub up there in Maranda. And so I looked at it and I was like, okay, cool, I'll share it. And I didn't really think anything of it for a couple of days. And so I was driving home one night and I thought, hey, I'm going to call that number and see if that's even still a thing, because you never know. I didn't know how quickly that process actually went, or if they still needed a kidney. So I called the number and ended up actually getting my recipient's mom. And she's a dear, she's sweet. And she said that I needed to take a different number down and talk to a man named Jeff at Aurora St. Luke's in Milwaukee. So I thought, okay, well, this is gonna be a lot of phone calls. Sure, why not? So I ended up calling Jeff, and he told me he was a transplant coordinator. It's been a while, so I got to think of all the big words. And so he kind of gave me the breakdown, that they would have to test my blood first, and he would FedEx me a testing kit, and I could take it to any lab and have them do the draw and seal it up, label it, and ship it back to them. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And so we kind of ended the call there, and I didn't really think anything of it for a couple of days until I think my wife got the package out of the mail, and she said, "Hey, you got a package from Wisconsin. What did you order?" And I said, "Oh, hey, by the way, I think I'm going to test to be a kidney donor." It was just kind of, oh, okay. Thanks for the heads up. So I was able to go to a hospital in a town over, who was actually in the same health group as Aurora St. Luke's. And I went to their lab and said, "Hey, here's my situation. I'm trying to test for this. Can you help me get it sent up there?" And they said, "Yeah, that's fine." So they signed me into the lab, took the blood draw, and the nurse lady didn't label it properly before they sent it. So I got a call a couple days later from Mr. Jeff, and he said that he told me that it was mislabeled, and he asked if I wanted to try again. And I said, "Well, of course, let's go." And so then after I got the phone with him, I called my wife and said, "Hey, we're going to get another package from Wisconsin because they did it wrong." And she said, "Okay, now that I know it's coming, it's fine." Um, so I got the package, I took it into the hospital, got the blood drawn, watched them label it and have it sent off. And it just kind of slipped my mind for a couple of days. And then I get another call. I said, "Hey, your blood matches. So do you want to move forward in the testing?" I said, "Yeah, let's, what else have we got?" And so he said, "Okay, I'm going to mail you a bunch of orders and billing information, because the recipient's insurance is going to cover all the testing that you're going to need." So I went down to my boss and I said, "I need to take a day to go through all this testing." And he was just kind of concerned. He thought, "Is that really a good idea? Do you really want to do this? Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I really want to do this." And he was kind of like my mentor. So he backed me up a lot. And he kind of stood up for me to the big bosses when I said, "I'm going to need a couple of weeks off in the future." But we'll get to that. Um, he gave me the day, and so my wife was going over the orders and she was researching what all these tests were going to be. She had no idea what these big words were. I had no idea what the big words were. Creatinine. I mean, what even is that? So she found out that to do some of these tests, I would need to fast for several hours prior to going in. And so I did the fasting the night before, walked into the lab, handed the orders over, and the lab tech came out and said, "We can't just do these tests." I said, "Lady, I haven't had food or water in 12 hours. Let's do this today." And she said, "Okay, that's great. Yeah, good idea." So that lab went through the whole testing process with me, and they had my back the whole time. So we got all the testing except for the ultrasound. They couldn't do the ultrasound there. So I talked to Jeff about that one, and he said I would have to schedule a time to actually drive up to Wisconsin and do the ultrasound and some more imaging there and actually meet the surgical team and everything. And so I thought that was going to be really interesting. And then I'd have to ask my boss for another week off and try to figure out how I'm going to afford a trip to Wisconsin in the middle of December. And so my wife was backing me up once she realized I was going through with all the testing. I really wanted to get on this ride. She jumped in right next to me and she nearly took the steering wheel. I'm pretty sure that if it was her testing, she would have gone through the whole thing as well. She found the NLDAC, which was able to help us financially with travel expenses, food expenses, room and board. And she was able to budget everything they gave us for plane tickets, a rental car, an Airbnb, which are fantastic. She budgeted food, gas, everything. And so we got a rental car, drove up to Wisconsin. I got to the hospital. I met Jeff. I wasn't really talking to my recipient at the time, but we did spend a few days up there, and I Facebook stalked him a little bit, if I'm being honest. Like, who am I testing for? What kind of person is this? So we got up there. I did the ultrasound. I did a CT, I think. I did a lot of more blood work. Met my main doctor. I met the surgeon. Got a tour of the facility. And then I met my recipients team as well. And they ordered a specific test. I don't know exactly what it was, but they had to inject radioactive isotopes into my arm and then watch it flow through my kidney and see how quickly it was being filtered out of the blood and cycling through my system, which was really cool because there's a dark screen and suddenly there's kidney-shaped stars everywhere. So they said after that test came back, they would take it to the transplant board and they would call me in a couple of days to let me know if I had been approved or denied. So my wife and I left Wisconsin not knowing whether or not we were going to be able to go through with it. And so we drove all the way home as quickly as we could to, I guess, hurry up and wait. And so about 3 days went by. They had a surgery scheduled for the time that they were going to have the initial hearing. So they had to reschedule it. And so it was a rainy day. I remember very vividly. It was storming. It was very nice. I love the thunderstorms. So it was stormy, it was dark, it was windy and rainy, and I got a phone call from Wisconsin, and I thought, okay, moment of truth, yes or no, it's go time. So I answered the phone, and I ran into a back room to, kind of be quiet because I worked in an automotive dealership, so it was loud in the shop. And I said, hey, you've been approved. When do you want to schedule this? And I thought, okay, so it's December. Let's try to do it on my birthday. I want to do it on the 30th of January. And they said, I'll see what I can do. So he went through his scheduling and he contacted all the surgical teams. And he said, the best we can do is the 8th of February. And I said, that's fine. I can work with that. And so then I had to go again to my boss and say, hey, I got approved. I do need those 2 weeks. Here's the dates that I'm leaving, and here's the dates I'll be back. He said, it's fine. Take all the time you need. Just be careful. I said, all right, great. So he helped me kind of look at different airline deals. And then my wife ended up actually booking all the flights and Airbnb and setting up Uber rides and getting us ready to go. And so it was just a waiting game. It was a month and a half of being anxious and excited and nervous and getting the queasy feeling in your stomach. I'm really doing this. It's going to happen. So I thought that's great. So we left a day early, got on the flight, flew up to Minneapolis, jumped on another plane, came into Milwaukee, went straight to the hospital because I had started talking to my recipient at the time on Facebook Messenger. So we started kind of going back and forth. Hey, this is when I'm going to be there. Would you like to meet and have a meal together before we go through with this? And he said, yeah, it's a great idea. So the picture on the right is actually us meeting for the first time right after his lunch before he had to start going on a fasting. And then the hospital put him up in temporary housing across the road. So he was really close. And then my wife and I went to our Airbnb, and I had been up for 36 hours at this point. I was so anxious. I was so excited. I was ready to go. I said, I will sleep on the table. That's fine. But we did end up falling asleep, and I actually overslept all the alarms for the surgery, which was scheduled at 5. So my wife woke up to the phone going off, and she said, hello. And I said, hey, this is the surgical team of St. Luke's. We're looking for Noah. Is he still doing the surgery? And she said, love, we're late. We got to go. So as we're getting dressed and ready to go, she's calling up an Uber, and we got this really great guy, older gentleman. And he went really quickly to the hospital. He got us there really fast. In like 10 minutes. We were 15 minutes away. He got us there real fast. So he pulls up to the door, And I left her in the car. I jumped out and I started running into the hospital. I'm running in going, hey, I'm Noah. I'm here for the thing. And they said, okay, go in that room over there and we need to get you clean and dressed down. I said, okay, great. So my wife comes in there and she finally catches up. And so she's helping me get ready. She's doing the washing, prepping the work area they're going to be in. And I'm going a mile a minute. I am just I'm sweating bullets. I'm anxious. My pulse is high. They said, do you need something to calm down? I said, yes, please, that'd be great. And so they gave me an IV and they gave me something. And then I woke up in recovery because I have no idea what happened after that. According to my recipient and his mom and my wife and everybody else that was present in the room apart from me, I was waving and giving everybody a thumbs up and saying, all right, I'll see you on the other side. And I don't remember any of that. I do remember waking up in recovery and everyone was looking at my toes that my wife had painted the green and the blue for Donate Life, and it was real fancy, and the nurses were real jealous. Yeah, that was my wife. As she commented on that's great. So surgery goes good. I wake up, surgeon comes to see me. He's asked me how I'm feeling. And I said, you know, I'm sore and I'm tender in some spots. And he said, well, you did just lose a knife fight. And I said, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I only spent a couple of days in the hospital. He did make me get up and start walking around and limping down the halls. And I had the IV pole and I had my fancy pretty gown. And I don't know if anybody else had the issue where you had to be cast, but that was the first time for me. And that's an issue. So walking up and down the hall, and the surgeon's assistant, like direct right hand assistant, sees me with a cup of coffee. And she tells me no, she scolds me and says, go to your room. And so we went back to my room. And the next day I got released after an incident with the cath bag where the nurse had come in overnight and tried to change the bag or drain it or count something, but she didn't close the bag. That's what I know. And so we all woke up to me like a puppy with a mess on the floor. And I was expecting a newspaper against the head somewhere. So that was fun, but we did go and spend the next 2 weeks in the Airbnb for my basic recovery. And so I could do my 2-week follow-up with the rest of the team. We had the recipient and his family over for dinner one night. My wife cooked us all food and it was fantastic. I'm sure we have pictures from that night, but I'm really rough looking and I'm not willing to share those yet. But it's going to be 3 years in February since we had our whole shebang. And my wife and I, we brag about it any chance we get. I mean, that's an adventure that not a whole lot of people get to say they've gone on. So anytime she gets to put it in a conversation, she does. She'll throw it in at work. She'll throw it in with her friends. She'll throw it in with family. She's super proud of it, and I'm excited that she's proud of it. My recipient has actually gone and gotten a bachelor's. I think he's gone on to get his bachelor's degree, and I'm not sure in what, but he's also gotten scuba certified and underwater welding certified since the surgery. So he has bloomed. He has taken this second chance and absolutely run with it. And I could not be more excited. So that's my adventure. I'm really glad I got to share that.
Thank you, Noah, very much for sharing. And those details that lead up to that big moment, glad you made it in time. Those details that lead up to the donation are so important for others to hear, that process and what we go through and the considerations. And in the network, our family, our friends, just complete strangers, right, that we're considering as part of that journey. So thank you for sharing from Oklahoma to Wisconsin, how you got to St. Luke's and to be part of the One Beaner Club. Thank you. And Amy, we're going to turn the mic over to you. I was going to say, do we have a sleeping baby, or we're doing good? All right.
Kid woke up and needed to eat and filled his diaper, and so we'll see how this goes.
It's perfect. You let us know if you need us to sing a lullaby, whatever you need. Just call on us, girl.
Anyways, my name is Amy Prince, and I am a stay-at-home mom to 3 boys. We are navigating 2 of them in virtual school while having a newborn, and life is crazy right now, but here we are. My story started in fall of 2016. At that time, I knew nothing about living donation. I didn't even know it was a thing. I had just the picture on the left there is the group O-Town, and that's me and my recipient in the middle. It is both of our favorite bands. So we were in a Facebook group that just kind of, all the people in there are fans of the band. They're talking about what shows they're going to and just kind of getting to know each other kind of thing. So I knew of her. We were both in the group together, but I didn't know her. And her friends had made a Facebook group just kind of simply just saying that she needed a kidney and what her blood type was and a phone number if anybody was interested in donating. So the O-Town on their Twitter page had put a link to this group on Facebook, and I saw it one day as I was scrolling through and just thought I'd click on it. I was curious. I had seen her name pop up in the group. So I clicked on it and saw that we were the same blood type. And for some reason, I just had this weird, feeling that this was something I needed to look into, I needed to pursue. So I contacted the hospital and kind of started from there. It was a lot of back and forth and phone calls. And as I'm sure, a lot of they deal with so many people that you have to kind of, at least in my case, I had to kind of keep on them to keep the process moving. So I didn't actually start my testing until the next summer of 2017. She lives in Philadelphia, as Michelle had mentioned. So I live near La Crosse. So I did all my testing here. And then in August of 2017, the only thing I had left to do, all my testing went fantastic. Everything came out great. And all I had left to do was have my CT scan done. So they had no concerns at all. So they wanted me to fly down to Philadelphia and meet the transplant team. So I flew down there, I had my CT scan done, and I was meeting with them the next day and fully expected to get the green light. And that was not what happened. They ended up finding a tumor in my back that was very close to my right kidney. So that put kind of a screeching halt to the whole process. So I flew back to Wisconsin the very next day and kind of started the process to figure out what was going on with the tumor in my back. Because it was very vascularly involved, I had a really hard time finding any surgeons that even wanted to touch it, because they were just worried about, everybody basically said, I think this is benign. We don't want to touch it. We don't want anything to happen to it. But because, down in Philly, they needed to know that it was benign before they were able to let me continue with the process. I needed to have that taken out and looked at and everything. So long story short, I ended up in October of 2017, I finally found a surgeon that was willing to take it out. They sent the results to Philly. It was as benign as it possibly could be. The type of tumor it was, it kind of falls on a spectrum. So he wasn't able to tell me 100%, but because there was a 0.01 chance of this tumor returning at some point in my life,
the hospital that we were working with in Philadelphia denied me as a donor. So that was in December of 2017, a couple months later. And it was just devastating at that point because we'd already been working on this process for a year now. So I told her, I said, you know, the ball's in your court. If you want to try another hospital, if we want to get a second opinion, I'm totally up for it. So she that day actually contacted another hospital and we started the process with them again. It took a couple months, but they did end up approving me as a donor. So that was in March of 2018. So this was about a month or a year and a half after we had started. And then in May of 2018 is when we actually had our surgery finally. Sorry, I hope you guys can hear me. So May of 2018 is when we had our surgery. A couple days ago, we hit a year and a half. My recipient is still doing fantastic. And everybody's talking about their kidneys names. My recipient's team had encouraged her to name the kidney before she even had a donor. And so she named it Lola. So Lola is the kidney that she got, and Lucy's the one I still have left. We both have matching tattoos of that logo that's on our shirts in the picture with our kidneys on. So yeah, that was my story. That was the band that kind of connected us, and they actually flew me back to Philadelphia a couple months after I got back to Wisconsin. They were doing a show there, and they kind of brought us up on stage and told our story to, you know, anybody that hadn't heard it yet. So that was a pretty cool way that we were connected. So yeah.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And if I was, you know, Oprah or somebody, there'd be a live performance right now, you know, like a kidney.
Unfortunately, I don't have anybody to serenade us all tonight.
Right. Oh, really appreciate you sharing the story. And again, each of you that presented this evening has such a unique story, that non-relative, the travels, the altruistic piece, the paired exchange, like just some really great stories to help, again, educate others about the potential of living organ donation. So thank you for joining us this evening, and for your son joining us as well. He did so well. I encourage everyone to type their questions in to the chat now, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. I'm going to scroll through here to see if there was any questions asked. We were chatting about who needed their kidney and who didn't.
Michelle?
Yes, Jill?
I'll just say this quick. This isn't a question, but I just wanted to say that, well, first of all, I never get tired of a transplant story. I love every one of them. They're all so unique. But, you know, something that always strikes me as my whole journey was a year and a half long and started with one recipient and ended with another. And it always strikes me how many living donors, I guess the word persistent always comes up, because it's amazing to me how, you know, you guys just don't back down. You know, you run into a roadblock and you just back up and move over and go back forward a different way. And I find that is consistent in so many living donor stories where something came up and where a lot of people would walk away. It just doesn't happen with a lot of living donors. And I just want to comment that, because that's just one thing that I have heard over and over and over in the, I don't know, hundreds of stories that I've heard over the years, and it's pretty amazing. So that's a trait I think you all can be very proud of, that, you know, that persistence, and it pays off in so many ways. So I just wanted to comment that.
Thank you. Thank you for making that comment. Yes, your 10 plus years and all the great work that you do to advocate and create awareness for organ donation. Thank you for being here with us. Sam, did you unmute yourself? If not, I'm putting you on the spot to ask the question. No, okay. I did want to, and I believe Laura is still watching on the Facebook Live. And if you're on the live, please definitely, you can post questions there. But I wanted to share a reflection from Laura, and I think it's an important one because selfishly for me, I'm thankful that my recipient is doing well. I know my recipient. I can get an update, a quick text away, and so feel very, very blessed and fortunate every day, and don't take that for granted. But when you meet Laura and you hear her story, you're reminded, and I'll share what she posted in the Facebook Live, is that unfortunately for a few, donation does not save the recipient. I donated to my brother, but he died 1.5 years later. It broke my heart. The anti-rejection drugs caused him many, many problems, including return of his epileptic seizures. He died from that. This was in 2004. It took me over a decade to stop blaming myself. Now, Laura, I thank you for sharing that. I know we met on a One Kidney Club call, and your story really resonated with me as, again, to remember those trials and tribulations and the journey of organ donation and transplant in general, and why people need the transplant. Oftentimes they're very sick, and this is a life-saving procedure, but in many cases there may, or not many, in cases there may be those other issues that need to be cared for and considered. And so truly we thank you for sharing that and giving us that perspective. Does anyone have any other questions or comments to make? All right. If you don't do anything else tonight, and I know that there's a slide coming up that's going to remind you of this, but you don't do anything else tonight, please take the survey that's coming to your inbox soon. Whether you are a presenter, a guest, a visitor from near or far, please take the survey so that we can evaluate the programs. The National Kidney Foundation leadership is very interested to know what we really love about these and how we can make them better, what topics you're interested in, etc. So that SurveyMonkey link is going to hit your inbox momentarily. If you're quick on your fingers, you could have copied that SurveyMonkey link down and popped right in. But definitely, please take the survey this evening and share your feedback. You can even comment on the Facebook Live through Living Donors Together of Wisconsin. Email, you know how to reach us if you're unable to get to that survey link. I am going to actually turn the last few slides here over to Jill to wrap up our program this evening. Thank you again, everyone, for being here, and to our fabulous and very thoughtful donors. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Yes, please do take the surveys. That is actually something that we do read, we do pay attention to, and it helps Michelle and I and all of the leadership decide, what to present in the future. So we really do appreciate that. Please check out our Facebook page if you're not already on there, Living Donors Together of Wisconsin. Again, it's created by Living Donors, by Michelle and myself, for Living Donors. And so, we always welcome posts on there. Michelle is probably the one that posts the most. And, we always welcome welcome visitor posts. Anything that you see that you think might be interesting to others, please share it. We absolutely love to see everybody's posts on there. Again, we thank Sara for always coming to us with a great advocacy update, because those are things that she stays on top of us, or stays on top of things for us. And we really appreciate that, because some of us aren't very politics savvy, and she is, so we very much appreciate that. And
can I jump in for just one?
Yeah, absolutely.
While we were on tonight, I actually got an email from the National Kidney Foundation Kidney Advocacy Committee, and they do want us to contact our legislators between now and the end of the year about the immunosuppressive bill that would cover the drugs that we recipients need. Right now, Medicare only covers them for 3 years after transplant, and that bill would cover them for life. And we just got an urgent request to continue to contact that when they go back to work after the Thanksgiving recess. We are still hopeful that that bill will pass before the end of this year. So that's what I'll be doing. And if anybody else wants to reach out to their legislators, please contact me and I can help you do that.
Oh, that's great. That's great, Sarah. Can you share that on our Facebook page too?
Absolutely.
Okay, that would be great. I just wanted to go back really quickly because there's a few comments on here, and this was after we talked about, I think, the persistence. And Noah said, and I'm sure you guys can read them too, but I'll just go through them quick. Noah said, I learned from my coordinator that my recipient had dozens of people test. Only 3 of us were able to go far enough to donate, but the other 2 backed out for unknown reasons. I felt like I was racing them the whole time. And Amy said, you know, many people expressed interest in being tested for my recipient, but I was actually the only one that did. That much more amazing that I ended up being a match. And I completely agree with that. And then Miranda said many of Travis's family and friends would donate for him and got tested, but didn't match. Only one of them decided to step up and donate to a stranger so he could get put in the NKR. And that's how we were matched. And again, that speaks to that persistence, you know, that, you know, many of them were tested, but as soon as they found out, and you know, we don't fault anybody because we don't know why people step away necessarily. There may be, you know, things go on in people's lives. We really don't know, but obviously in this case, you know, it just makes a huge difference when that one person steps up. And then again, when Miranda's there to step in and become that match. So, you know, everybody again has an amazing story. So continue to share them. I guess that's the best thing that I can say is just continue to share your story. You know, I laughed when Noah said he tells everybody and his wife tells everybody. I think that's fantastic. You know, I read over and over from living donors how they don't want to talk about it because they feel like they're bragging or there's some kind of a, you know, they feel like they're saying, you know, they get too much attention on themselves. And I say, bring all of that attention onto yourself because hearing somebody's story, I think is how you get other living donors. I sometimes, yeah, Miranda, thumbs up because you know, sometimes, you know, I talk about it and amazingly, sometimes I'll have somebody say to me, you know, after years, I mean, I've been doing this now for, you know, a long time, 9 years, almost 10 years. And I'll have somebody say to me, hey, I'm really considering being a living donor. And I had no idea that they were considering being a living donor. And, you know, your message is going to get through to somebody. There's absolutely no doubt that your message is going to get through. So I love it that you guys are talking and I hope you continue to talk. Obviously in this group, sometimes we're preaching to the choir, but there's people watching on Facebook Live. This gets recorded. People will watch it down the road and you just never know who that one person is going to be that's going to say, hey, you know what? I can maybe do that as well. So, Michelle, I think you actually had a question on here for Susan and Miranda. Did you know about paired exchange when you started your journey? Do you guys want to answer that? Susan, do you want to answer that first?
I can answer that. So back when I started the process in 2007 through 2009, it really wasn't that big of a thing back then. Freighter, like I said, we ended up changing hospitals because Freighter did not have a paired exchange program at that time. Yep. Fortunately, UW did, but there wasn't a lot of information about it back then. I mean, I think they've made a lot of progress since then and really had more publicity and more information about it out there. And now I know Freighter does participate. I think more centers are starting to get involved with it because it's a great way to get a lot of people off a waiting list.
Yep, I can actually tell you, Susan, that UW put their first pair into the paired exchange program in December of 2010, because I was actually with my first recipient at the time, and we were going to have to go into the paired exchange program. He ended up getting a deceased donor kidney, but they had just put their first pair in December of 2010. So yeah, you're right. I mean, when you were going through it, it was a thing. It just wasn't a thing. It was a hand, you know, nurses had to go through everything by hand and try to match. And it wasn't a computer program. Like it wasn't the true NKR like it is now. So that's very true. Yep. So yeah, you're right. You were kind of pre NKR days, you know, at that time. So Miranda, did you know about the paired exchange?
I did. However, since I was doing a non-direct donation, it really didn't apply to me. But if needed, I absolutely would have done it for anybody.
That's great. Does anybody else have anything to comment or ask after that discussion? Anything anybody can think of? Okay, there will be a recording on the kidneywisconsin.org, kidneywi.org/livingdonorstogetherwisconsin. I think, is the recording on our Facebook page as well, Michelle? I believe, right? Okay, so it should be on our Facebook page as well. So if you have anybody that wants to watch it or you want to share it, you can certainly do that as well. Is there another slide, Michelle, or is that it? I should know this answer. Or upcoming programs. Upcoming programs, you can see the dates there if you put them in your calendar, if you want to take a screenshot of the days or take a picture or whatever. January 19th, February 16th is going to be kind of, January 19th is more living donor stories. February 16th is more of a social, so we can kind of all get to know each other hopefully a little bit better. And then March 16th, we're going to be talking about living donation and communities of color. So those are our upcoming programs in January, February, and March. We hope you all will join us and hopefully share with any of your friends or family, or anybody's welcome. You know, it's not just living donors. Anybody that wants to attend is certainly welcome at any time. And these are just some more upcoming programs through the National Kidney Foundation as well that they have available that you can register for at any time. And you can find those on their Facebook page and on their website as well. Okay, Michelle, I don't know if you have anything else. John says he has Amy's favorite band, O-Town, here for us. I don't think in person, but.
No. I know that Elise was hopeful to some remarks as well. And Jill and I wish you all a wonderful and happy holiday season. Be well. We're happy to do Zoom, social hour at any point, since we're all going to be hunkered down this winter season. So definitely reach out. Anything impromptu or interest in gathering questions, please engage with the Living Donors Facebook group. And thank you for staying connected and continuing to connect others to organ donation through your stories. Thank you. And with that, we'll turn it over to Elise and listen to some O-Town.
Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate it. A couple sentiments that I just want to express to the group. First is my sincere gratitude to everyone for sharing their stories. I think sometimes I forget how powerful stories like that can truly be and how amazing the human spirit can be. And I really reflect on what Jill said. Something that's very unique about living kidney donors is their persistence and their perseverance. And I'm so grateful to have heard all of these stories and so grateful for all of you for sharing that. Another thing that I took away today is I don't think I share enough. I think Jill was the one who expressed sometimes it's that hesitancy, you don't want to brag about it. You don't want to sound, braggy when you share this, but I'm going to make the commitment today to share my story as often as I can. And I hope for those of you who are on the call, who are maybe fellow living kidney donors, I hope that you can leave here today making that same commitment. And for those of you who presented, I hope you can continue to share your stories, because even as a living kidney donor, they are incredibly powerful. If there's anybody on the call today who is thinking about becoming a living kidney donor, I hope that these short stories showed you how amazing the body is and how you can have babies and run Ironmans and do triathlons and help in the government, and the possibilities are endless being a one-beaner, and it just makes me so proud to be a part of this group. And last but not least, I just want to recognize Laura and her comments that she made about her recipient. I can definitely relate to that, as my recipient went through a period where she thought that she was rejecting, and that sense of guilt. But I just want to leave you with a sentiment that what you did was so amazing and such a selfless gift. And any amount of time that we can give people the gift of life, that any matter of minutes or time that we can give within living kidney donation is so important. So I hope leaving here today that I am truly grateful for what you did, and as well as is the living donor community. My sister-in-law is actually here with me, and she expressed the same sentiment about there's nothing more powerful than a living kidney donation story. So again, thank you all for sharing. I look forward to seeing you again on these webinars in the future. Please support living kidney donation as much as you can. Share your stories and follow us on whatever social media venue you're able to. Thank you again, and we'll move to O-Town.